I don't know who's out there because on our screens we can only see our beautiful selves. So good evening. Please do say some comments and tell us some things if you're out there listening in the universe. But this is my first ever Snag Stylist conversation with, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have with me Ben Peachy, who I have followed on Instagram for a long time, whose book I own and other books I have given to other people. An amazing award-winning non-binary author, a stylist and stylish person. I absolutely love Ben's red carpet looks in particular when Ben goes full glam. It's just so joyful and I love that. But also, Ben, you're an activist and an educator. Could you tell us a little bit about what brought you into the field of activism and educating?
So, also, thank you for that
You're welcome.
glorious introduction.
Thank you so much for being here.
It's so lovely to be here with you. Thank you so much. So for me, I remember there being a really clear distinction around Brexit. So for those of us that are not in the UK, Brexit happened in 2016, I think. Yeah.
That long ago?
Nearly a decade, which is
wow.
Crazy, right? And I remember really waking up the day after the UK decided to leave Europe, and I really felt, and I'd campaigned a lot actually at a university, the fashion industry, because I have a fashion degree. The fashion industry was really keen to stay in the EU for those kind of things. And so I'd campaigned quite a lot for it. And then the day after, I sort of realized that no one was ever going to do anything for me, that no one was ever going to make this ride of life easier. And I realized that I had to do things for myself. And so that was the day that I signed up for my own domain and I started my own website. And from there, it really was the idea behind everything that I had to, in the ways that I could, small or big, make a difference. And it was that sort of turning point. And so for the last near decade of my life, whenever possible, I've done what I can to help, if that makes sense.
This is why I love you, because you've come straight in and almost made me cry with the
sorry.
No, in a really good way, with the profundity of what you've said, because I don't know that many people, certainly not at the age that you would have been then, make that realization that you are the captain of your own ship, and possibly you can also affect the destinies of other people in a broader category that you fall into as well. And I think once you do, that's how you find your inspiration and your power. So wow, that you found that so young. But it doesn't surprise me, having read your book and having followed you for so long, because you are one of the most self-aware and wise for your years people that I know of, which is why I love following you, because I'm 54 and I'll be honest, I think your generation in particular have taught me more about self-confidence, self-expression, claiming my own power than any other generation of people. And I think that you guys you're really impressive, and have really got things sussed. And I know that papers over the cracks and makes it sound like it's been a walk in the park, and it hasn't. And activism is never easy, and it puts you on the front line. But thank you from me, even as just one person who's been really inspired, truly inspired. People say, oh, I'm so inspired all the time, but truly you have inspired me. And it's been wonderful to know that there are other people out there in my phone, on my computer, who are going through that same process of finding out what brings us joy individually and collectively. And I know that in the book you've got a whole section. I'm going to show the book now, because the first book of Ben's that I've read is this one. It's called The Book of Non-Binary Joy. I've bought this for people and given it as a gift to people who I thought needed it. And I've read it, and as you can see, I've even place marked it because I found a lot in it. I found a lot in it as an ally, I hope, but also it just resonated with me as a person, as a human, and I think that the journey that you take the reader on in the book is extremely specific, but also very universal. Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah, completely. So like on one hand, it's completely written as a like an insular guide for non-binary people. So you don't need to look outside of the book. You don't need to go on the internet, and it can feel really, really safe. And so it's sort of like a non-binary first resource, and that can then be extrapolated to the wider trans community. But then it can also be widened to anyone who wants to explore who they are. If you just sort of ignore some of the specific terminology, it's actually, dare I say it, a guide for life, if that makes sense. And
I think
I
you're
think
so right. Yeah.
it has such a warmth that I think a lot of us could, if we were just less afraid of just dipping our toes in, of like what could be, and that's something I love so much, really.
Absolutely. I'm seeing a message down here in this corner to say that we've just connected with yours and our Instagram audiences. So I will do a quick reintroduction. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Josephine, I'm the Snag Stylist, and this is my first In Conversation With, and I'm launching it with the most wonderful guest, Ben Peachy. Ben, who has been, I'm going to say, a friend for a long time. We followed each other on Instagram, and we've boosted each other up, particularly during lockdown times. We were part of the community that really, really kept people going, I think. And Ben is also an award-winning writer, an activist, a TED talker, and an extremely stylish individual. Hence, well, one of the reasons that I have invited them here. Ben, I wanted to talk in particular this evening about style, obviously, because that's my role. That's my role within Snag. At Snag, we are all about the inclusivity. That's something that comes right from the heart of the business. Brie, our founder, is a plus size person, is queer, and is I believe is also on the spectrum, and therefore they are trying to remake clothing in a new way, in a way that can be for everybody. And I know in your book, which we've talked about a little, but I'm going to show it again for those who have not been with us until now, which is the Book of Non-Binary Joy. There is a bit in there about making clothes non-binary, and that's something that I'm interested in. So what do you think the industry could do there? What do you do personally in that way?
So it sounds kind of like big and scary, like I'm asking for the industry to tear itself apart. Obviously, the way that we use gender in the industry is categorization to sell products. Like it's simply how we navigate on websites, how we navigate shops. But I think when you realize that clothes are just fabric, you can do what you want. And so it means that you can still sell in traditional ways, you can still do traditional marketing, but it's creating spaces, whether that's online, whether that's in communities, where you show a variety and range of people in your garments to show that anyone can literally put this on their body. And I think Snag does that really well, actually, to see the range and diversity of bodies, not just in gender, but in age, in body size. There's so many things there, and it creates a rich tapestry of diversity. And I think, you know, from a business perspective, when I work with brands and as a consultant, if more people see themselves in your brand, more people are going to connect with your brand, right? It's a no-brainer. But
Yeah.
also, isn't it nice to have the opportunity to allow people to see themselves in your products? And so for me, it's something, you know, I just don't say no. If I feel like I want to try something, I'll try it. It
Yeah.
could be as simple as putting like a black lip gloss over a red lipstick. Fun. What does it matter if it's rubbish? I'll take it off.
Yeah.
But it can also be exploring style trends in vintage to try and pull something different that feels like it could take you somewhere else. For me, I love wearing ties because I think they represent, I think, a couple of things, but I think they represent masculinity, but for me, they also represent subversion. I think of Annie Lennox in Eurythmics in the 80s,
Yeah.
and she wore a tie like no one else. And so for
Yeah.
me, a tie represents like a kind of like a cheeky wink, like I'm doing something that I know is very traditional, but also I'm having fun with it. And I
Yeah.
think it's just little ways like that that you can make life exciting
Yeah.
because you get to write the rules, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And that's and I think you're touching there so well on how you can take a classic style or a classic garment like a tie, and you can make a little statement or a comment with it by altering what goes around it, by
Yeah,
altering even the way in which you wear it attitude wise,
yeah,
not even necessarily what you're wearing it with. And that's something I absolutely love playing with, and I love subversion within fashion. It's one of my favorite things, and most of my favorite designers are people that have tried to explode things and then rebuild them in a different way. And I love that about your personal style. There are some things that I think are your sort of signature things, like
okay.
the red lip, which is also usually mine as well. Um, and but you also are very playful with style, and you're very playful in the way that you present your outfit of the day, especially on Instagram when you do your videos. And sometimes you're rushing across,
Yeah,
I'm going to say, the stage. It's like I feel it like a stage,
yeah.
see the march there, but you're rushing across and then you nip back in. It's very joyful and very playful. Is that something conscious that you're doing?
Yes, 100%. So I have like a formula, and I think it's interesting. As a trans person, you often feel the harshness of reality around you. And so, for some individuals across communities across the UK, trans people can feel a bit threatening to them, which is the opposite of how we are and who we are.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes I think I do try and inject a little bit of softness, a little bit of levity, just
Mm.
to, even though I think everyone would know, you're safe with me. You've always been safe. You'll always be safe with me.
Yeah.
But I think visually coding that is helpful
Yeah.
and also makes me feel safe myself as well, because I
Yeah.
sometimes think that if I was in a difficult situation, my outfit might disarm somebody. My outfit might distract them long enough for me to, run away or get help or whatever. But
Yeah.
also, I think there's a joy and there's maybe a maximalist, more is more approach, because I do want to stop people in their tracks on the internet. We have like 3 seconds of attention span, but if
Yeah.
I can grab you, maybe you'll stay and maybe you'll learn something.
Yeah.
So my outfits are there to like lure you in. Basically, it's like fly fishing on Instagram. I'm a
Well, it totally
beautiful,
works.
shiny thing on the top of the water, but I want to reel you in and I want you to learn something. And that's all I really care about, is somebody learning something so that either they get to have a better time or they get to help someone else have a better time, because we're all in this together. And I just think, I read somewhere, I think it was Paloma Faith's charity. I think it was in 2017 when she was doing an album, and they basically conducted like some advice and research in London. If everyone in London, I think it was like 10 million people,
Mm.
donated 50p, it would be like 5 million quid. If everyone did something nice, think of the change we could make. And if you're trying to do that every single day, that's a huge chain reaction. Whenever something good happens to me, like someone lets me out in traffic, or someone like when I cycle to the gym, if someone like lets me out and goes across the road on my bike, they stop for me. I always try and find a way of doing something equally nice for someone else in my day. Like those Instagram videos you see where people like they'll pay for the Starbucks coffee behind them. Not that we should be shopping Starbucks.
No.
Boycott, boycott, boycott.
Yeah.
But I always try, even if I'll start on net zero and I'll try and do something nice, smile at someone on the street, or try and do something. But if someone does something for me, I'll make sure that I pay that back again.
Yeah.
I just think we're in really strange times. There is a lot of awful things going on. It doesn't take away from the fact that our individual lives can be really difficult too. But prioritizing just a little bit of kindness. I mean, it's common sense and it feels ridiculous to say, but I think it could make a real difference.
I do too. And I think the other thing about the modern world, and possibly speaking for myself, I'm now working from home, and I used to work in lots of different schools and in a very busy and peopled environment.
Yeah.
And working from home, it's very easy to, well, two things. There's the bell chamber effect, that you only hear your own ideas echoed back at you because you've curated your world. But also you don't get exactly what you've just explained, which is that knock-on effect of the good things. Of course, there are also the negatives that come with that, and when someone's having a bad day, they can pass that on just as easily. But I have also been consciously seeking ways to lighten and brighten the world, given the dark times that we feel as if we're experiencing. And I grew up in the 80s, or I was at school in the 80s, and I remember there was the constant threat then of nuclear war. And for my generation, we thought, the Berlin Wall came down, the Cold War was over, and it seemed as if we were going in a different direction. And I think, to be honest, we got very laissez-faire about the whole thing, and we'd stopped steering the ship, and we were just floating along, having a perfectly lovely time, and we'd managed to become very individualistic doing that. And I think what has happened now is probably a reaction in some ways to that incredible lack of empathy that we have all been getting by with. God, we're getting very philosophical, aren't we? But I think it's when people talk about style and fashion as if it's simply vanity and frippery, I always argue, basically, because there's so much community in the fashion world, both in the high fashion world, but also amongst communities that belong to various or subscribe to various companies and things. So there are lots of different companies that have got wonderful communities, ours included. Our snagglers are amazing, and I absolutely love going onto those Facebook pages and talk boards, because it's like a little microcosm of how things could be. There is acceptance. People will speak up if something goes awry, but they will do it gently, and not condemn others. And so, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you to you for being a part of that in my world, because when it was lockdown, you were one of the people that kept me going with your brightness and your creativity. That, for me, creativity is a channel to community, and that's why in you I see a fellow creator, creative, and that's always really wonderful to see. And I wonder, when you choose how you present yourself each day, how do you decide? What's your process for using that creativity for your outfit each day? Do you have a process?
I definitely have a process if I am going to be on stage, or I'm going to be in the public eye. I definitely need to dress in a way that, like I said, disarms, but also makes me feel powerful. I like to almost stand out a little bit. Not that I want to grab attention, but I just need to feel my individuality and step into my power. I often talk about myself as the trans Lorraine Kelly of the community. So I don't know if you know, but Lorraine Kelly had a tax scandal a couple of years ago, and she basically claimed that she was a performer and she was playing the role of Lorraine Kelly on national television, and she was able to get out of paying some tax because it means that you can do different things. And sometimes I dress in a way to perform as Ben Peachy. I don't need to do it every day, and I don't need to do it every time I'm speaking. But when I'm like dealing rooms of 2,000 people, I do need to step in that role. And then there's day-to-day dressing where I like to think of, can I do one thing that will maybe keep me distracted from the horrors, distracted from my overflowing email inbox, and sort of grab something that feels like putting fresh flowers in a room or opening up the blinds and sunlight coming in. I like to think of something that will make me feel like it'll make you smile, like you've got a treat saved for later on. And that could be like a silly pair of socks. That could be a new top. It could just be a little bit of lipstick. And so when I'm just at home working, it can be really easy to fall in the trap of, oh, I'll just leave pajamas on, or I'll get back from the gym and I'll just keep my workout clothes. Like, I do have to make a conscious effort to get dressed, because otherwise I think it can impact you negatively because you don't feel like yourself, if that makes sense.
I absolutely do get that. And working from home, when Ben and I were talking through our ideas for this evening, we were talking about this to a certain degree. Is when you're working from home, it's terribly easy to fall into the trap of not putting on your glam, not putting on anything other than your PJs, basically.
Yeah.
And I personally find that it's a signal for me that something is going a bit wrong psychologically for me, that I'm on the downward slope. If I don't put makeup on, if I don't wear earrings, that's probably a really big one for me, or lipstick, in particular lipstick, then I know it's like a little warning bell for me, like ding, 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 ding. You don't want to go down this path, because for me, it's partly armor. I absolutely understand the idea of it being. When I used to teach public speaking, I used to literally teach my students to have an invisible cape that they put on before they walked onto a stage, so that they were armored, so that they were dressed and they would imagine the most regal, the most gorgeous, the most sumptuous cape that they could put around them, and it both protected them, but also it projected out all of their power, and it was a safety thing as well for them. And we would visualize that, so that's what they were visualizing as they walked on stage, and they walked on with that wonderful bearing of somebody who is completely in control of this situation. And I was just talking to Ben earlier about the fact that when you're in the audience, I hate it when people walk on and they look really scared, because I am then I can't relax for the entire of their performance or their speech because I'm worried about them. So I completely understand armored dressing, and I've also recently spoken to people about dressing up for things like medical appointments in a way that presents you in a certain way. So perhaps a more sober suit if you want to be taken seriously. Or when I was being treated for skin cancer, I used to go in the most colourful, wackiest, brightest outfit that I possibly could, because I just wanted to take joy in there with me. And also I had the most amazing Macmillan nurse, and she made such a huge difference to my life, and I wanted to just bring her a bit of joy and everybody always commented and said, oh my goodness, you look amazing again. And it's just a small thing that I can do. When I was a teacher, it was the same. If I didn't go in a wacky outfit with incredible earrings, the children were devastated sometimes, and they would say, what's happened, Mrs. Dervish? It carries a little bit of joy to the world, but also it shows, as you say, a benignness that you are, that you have, that is a quality of you. And that's a very vulnerable place to put yourself in quite often, but also it's I think it's a sort of a gift that you're giving out of actually, I'm okay, I'm on your side, I'm safe, I'm not judging you. And there's so much judgment. And I'm always sad when we hear and read that Instagram is such a negative place for young people, because it's a magnification of the judgment that they would have got in my day. Back in my day, you might have got it at school, but then you went home and you were safe. But now people are bringing it home with them on their screens. Have you experienced negativity as Ben Peachy online, or is it more in real life, or what's your experience, if you don't mind talking about that?
Not at all. No, so I get it both. I get it in real life and I get it online. And you have to understand that algorithmically, hate does really, really well because it's interaction. And so we're shown it more often than the positive, the good stuff. And I'm working, so I work with TEDx Teesside and I coach speakers, and we're working with a speaker. Maybe I won't say too much, but
don't say too much.
It's about internet. It's about policing the internet, and actually, there's such a small % of hate. Yes, certain individuals in certain communities get a lot more, but on the whole, actually, there is a lot less hate than we think. It's just that we're shown it more often. So actually, we can filter it out and get rid of it. But I do get a lot, and I probably see negative commentary about myself every day that I'm on the internet, and that's a normal thing, and I'm used to it. I guess online it's easier to deal with because I don't know who those people are. I can't see them. I don't really care. Like, great, I'm thrilled for you, but like, so I just hide it away because I don't want young people coming to my profile, especially young trans people. I don't want them to see it. I don't want them to frame their narrative of understanding of what it is to be trans in the UK. So I obviously have to see it. I obviously have to moderate it, and I have to get rid of it. But I do that in a way to make sure that it doesn't harm anyone else. Because to a certain degree, you can discard it because some of the people that leave hate are thicky dum-dums. And God bless them. It's not their fault. I find it harder because I think the more we explore things, the more divided communities become. I find it harder when people within my community are unpleasant and are they think they're offering critique. I think they're being abusive. That could be hard to deal with. But on the whole, I am able to deal with that really well. In real life can be harder. Real life is real life. So it's much more of a thing to deal with because that person's there saying that thing to me. And so that could be harder. But that is not as a regular thing. Maybe like once or twice a week as opposed to every single day. And so there's just, you do things to avoid certain individuals. Like there's a woman in Sainsbury's who I hate, and I won't ever I won't ever let her serve me on a till. And if she's on the self-serve, I'll go to a belt. If she's on a belt, I'll go to self-serve. Because she once said something to me that was so awful, and I was so stunned, I just went home. It's now too late to complain, but I just on principle just won't go near her. So you just make life a little bit easier for yourself.
And I know it means nothing for me to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm so sorry that you have those experiences in the world, and that makes me really, really sad. But I can't imagine being the sort of person that wants to bring any human down unless they are Donald Trump. Let's use Donald Trump. I can imagine wanting to deflate Donald Trump or Elon Musk or one of those people. That's in my realm of understanding. But just somebody standing in front of you in a queue in Sainsbury's, I don't understand why somebody would reach for hatred or disapproval or scorn. I just don't know why you would. Even if you were having a really bad day, I've never been, perhaps I'm just incredibly privileged that I haven't ever been in such an awful place in my life that that's been my first port of call. I really, I really understand that. Thicky Thicky Dum Dums is brilliant.
Oh, you're welcome. You can have that.
Thanks, I might. But thank goodness I'm not teaching anymore, because we certainly wouldn't be allowed to say it there. But there are people who are ignorant. There are people who are less intelligent, and do not understand many things in life, and where they find things challenging, they treat them as a threat. But there are also people who enjoy squashing.
Really?
And I don't know if you've seen a post I've done recently, but I did a post recently about a lady in a local charity shop who effectively slut shamed me.
Gotcha.
And I do
love that.
I know this lady a little bit, and it was just I was more shocked by her intention, the intention behind her words, than I was by the words themselves. And she just said, in case people haven't read it, she said, "Oh, Josephine, I just have to say, is your husband a bit, how does he cope with you sitting around all day in your underwear for your job?" And I should have said, "Fuck off." But I didn't. And as I say, it took ages for me to process it, slow brain processing. But afterwards, the thing that annoyed me more than anything else was that, well, that she should assume that my husband's ashamed of what I do, but also that she needs to squash people. That's not something that's in me. Perhaps it was when I was a teenager, if I'm being really, really honest. I probably wouldn't have done it directly to people's faces, but I might have said that kind of thing to my friends.
Yeah, we've all gossiped, but you don't take it any further.
No.
You know, like you can think the worst things, and I'll be, the first to say there are always things that will cross your mind, but you don't have to do anything with it. You can absolutely just like recycle it and move on. But some people do choose to say things, and that's the difference.
Yeah, you're right. It is a choice, and it's a choice every time, isn't it? And even if you've done the wrong thing in the past, I think it's never too late to change.
Oh God, it's never too late. Every day is the chance to start over. Like, you're never too old. It's never too late. You can literally wake up tomorrow and go, "I'm going to start a leaf. I'm going to change everything. I'm going to be a new person."